Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Scotland's Community Heritage Conversations. My name is Cara, and on behalf of the organising committee, I want to say a huge thank you to all of you who have woken up and logged in on a Saturday morning. It's been an extraordinary year, of which we will likely hear more about as the morning progresses, but I just want to say how delighted we are that despite everything, here we are on the second weekend in November, coming together and talking, listening and learning about Scotland's amazing community heritage. And we've been doing that on this particular weekend since 2012, so we're really happy to have you all here today. And for those of you who are about to experience the event for the first time, I want to welcome you and hope that you enjoy it as much as we do. This event is brought to you by partnerships of heritage organisations, Archaeology Scotland, Chartered Institute for Archaeologists, Council for Scottish Archives, the Community Heritage Alliance, Historic Environment Scotland and Northlight Heritage. But really what makes this event so unique, and I think it is unique within the UK, is it is a platform for you to share the stories of your project and your heritage. As you will notice, the event has gone digital this year for now, but this has allowed us to expand beyond our traditional one weekend event. And we're hoping to hold a series of events from now and heading into 2021. Our next event will be taking place on the 9th of December, which will look at adapting through digital, and bookings are now open via Eventbrite, so do get booking. And we really want your input on the future content of these future events. So please do fill out your evaluation forms and tell us what you want to hear about. I'm just going to run through a few housekeeping rules in the schedule for today. So first up, you'll notice that you are all on mute and your cameras are disabled. And while I really miss seeing all your lovely faces, this will hopefully ensure that we have a smooth running order today. The talks have been pre-recorded, and after we hear those pre-recorded talks, we will then have a live question and answer session with each speaker. To take part in this, you can use the chat box to pose your questions, where my conference colleagues, Gavin and Eve, will pick it up. And towards the end of the event, we'll also have time for a wider discussion, which again, you can take part by posing your questions on the Q&A box. And if you don't know where that is, that's at the bottom of your Zoom screen, so you should be able to hover and find that Q&A there. Now, I know I don't really need to say this, but just to remind everyone to please be kind and respectful when you ask your questions. We really want to make sure that the lovely, friendly and inclusive nature of this event continues online. We're tweeting today, and our event hashtag is #CelebrateCHC, so please do feel free to pose questions and thoughts and feelings on Twitter as well. So let's get started. I have my lucky earrings on, so fingers and toes crossed, everything is going to go okay today. For our first talk, we're going to hear from Dr. Saqib Razak about the activities of Colourful Heritage. And I love that their strapline is Capture, Celebrate and Inspire. And these are really core aspirations that we share with our event. Running since 2010 and based on the West Coast, Colourful Heritage aims to preserve and celebrate the contributions of the early South Asian and Muslim communities and migrants to Scotland. And we're so delighted to welcome Dr. Saqib Razak this morning to discuss further. First, we will watch her presentation, and then we'll hear from Saqib in the question and answer session. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Saqib Razak and I work with an organisation called Colourful Heritage as Head of Research and as a Project Officer. Thank you for inviting me to talk at the Historic Environment Scotland conference today. The title of my talk is Resilience, Celebration, Innovation and Adaptation. The purpose of this presentation is to provide an insight into the work that Colourful Heritage has undertaken in the last 10 years or so, and how we are celebrating this achievement. Also how we have coped during this COVID-19 lockdown to be able to work from home, and why we are a resilient organisation. Also how we have innovated and adapted our events during these very challenging times. But before I do that, I wanted to tell you a little bit about Colourful Heritage and showcase the work that we have done so far. Colourful Heritage started in 2010 as an informal conversation amongst a group of friends that wanted to preserve the stories and the history of the South Asian and Muslim elders that came to work, live and eventually settle in Scotland more than 70 years ago. This was largely driven by the fact that there was an archival silence and this was not well documented before. Today we have become one of the largest South Asian heritage-focused charitable initiatives in Scotland, and it hosts the largest database of oral video histories in Scotland as well. And this database of video histories can be seen on our website, colourfulheritage.com. Now we have three aims, which are to capture the information, celebrate what we have achieved, and to inspire others with the contributions of the early South Asian and Muslim communities that came to Scotland. Incidentally, this year in 2020, we celebrate our 10-year anniversary of Colourful Heritage. Now, the South Asian story in Scotland is as rich as it is long, and I would like to take a few minutes to show you our Celebrating 10 Years video that we created and that we launched to showcase what we have achieved in the last decade or so. You can see from that video that we have managed to achieve quite a lot during the last decade or so. And of course, Colourful Heritage consists of a very small team, but yet we have consistently managed to achieve so much. So how is this possible? How do we manage this? And I guess this is because we have a strong leadership that is open to ideas and also in suggesting new and engaging ideas. We also have a very clear focus on what we want to achieve, which is driven by our aims of capture, celebrate and inspire. We also have a team of staff and volunteers that are passionate to be able to drive these projects to completion. Over and above all of this, we have a great network of friends and volunteers that help to assist us, and we have a great rapport with the people that we interact with. Now I'll talk about a project that we did during lockdown a little later involving some friends. I guess together these qualities make CH very resilient. So in March 2020, society at large was suddenly beginning to shut down day by day. National lockdown starts, and Colourful Heritage is also turning 10 during 2020. But everything we have planned or decided that we wanted to celebrate during the year is no longer looking possible. So what next, and how do we celebrate our achievements? One of the first things that we did was to evaluate all the outstanding work that we could do from home. We maintained contact with Glasgow Museum staff, often through personal emails, in order to complete what we were working on at the time, which was a digital primary schools resource pack. We managed to get this finished, and this consists of 5 individual digital booklets on various topics, as seen from the slide, all the way from the contribution of the British Indian Army to successful entrepreneurs and South Asians as politicians within Scotland. We were able to release these for schools to use by contacting all the heads of local authorities and by emailing head teachers in Glasgow primary schools. And because these were all digital and easy to access and also free to download, teachers were then able to access this for digital learning and use it by way of digital teaching. We also let the head of education know and were able to inform the heads of other local authorities as well. And this is something that's downloadable free from our website, as seen on the slide. It's a great resource for teachers and for educationalists. So during lockdown, we actually hired some extra staff in order to help us with what we had to complete at home. And a lot of this was we had to edit some of our interviews, which was a backlog of our interviews, in fact, and also to promote ourselves on social media. We used social media during the lockdown to connect with both young and old people using a variety of platforms, not just your regular social media platforms, WhatsApp as well. And this was in order to let them know about our resources so far. So we connected with the South Asian elders who were now shielding at home using the Golden Gem series. It was a 30-day WhatsApp series. And we shared some of our best interviews in Urdu and Punjabi. And the aim of this was to be able to connect the older generation with memories of days gone by. So they were able to watch and hear videos from their friends, their relatives. And this was hugely successful. We also started a 6-week daily social media campaign to highlight our latest interviews released called Our Journey. We also started our celebrations for our 10-year anniversary by releasing our new logo, which you can see in the bottom left-hand corner. And we created a number of short videos, just like the one that I've shown you earlier on. We had to adapt and convert from our live interviews, live events, live interviews to what we call the virtual Zoom events and Zoom interviews. And of course, we participated in the South Asian Heritage Month by holding a live virtual webinar about the contributions of South Asians to Scotland. We also managed within the period of a month to hold a series of 4 weekly live interviews with prominent Scottish South Asian women in Scotland called Her Story. And of course, we've also arranged a number of virtual remembrance community and school talks during this period. Now, most of these interviews or most of these events were able to be recorded and are available on our Colourful Heritage YouTube channel. So I guess some of the challenges and benefits, it was challenging to try and get the South Asian community to be able to start to use Zoom, especially the elderly, for interviews. However, being able to engage with a variety of family members, that was possible. But what we do notice is that we were saving on cost and on time. There was no more arranging for the venue, for any refreshments, and also the benefits were we were able to reach a wider audience using virtual Zoom webinars and interviews. This year we also managed to participate in a number of events that we may not have been able to do otherwise. For example, the Open Doors Festival and also the ICRA Book Festival, as well as, of course, this particular talk, the Historic Environment Scotland Conference as well. We were kept extremely busy, and this year we had to adapt and we had to arrange virtual remembrance talks for the primary and secondary schools. Usually we have people going into the schools and we have our live events, but we had to change all of this and make this all virtual. And actually we were able to reach a wider and far larger audience using this. We were also able to, we were contacted by BBC's Landward programme, so we were featured in this. And this was all because of our coverage during the last couple of months. So how do we celebrate colourful heritage? What we wanted to do a number of events this year. And of course, we've had to cancel some of them and rearrange some of them into virtual events. But what we wanted to really do is wanted to celebrate by giving a very valuable gift back to the community. So what we decided to do was to innovate a project in order to create a handbook which was filled with words of wisdom and lessons for living. And actually this was one of our biggest innovative projects, which involved interviewing senior members of the South Asian community using Zoom in order to write this book. And in fact, up until now, we had asked our elders about their migration story to Scotland, but now we wanted to probe deeper and ask their advice on a variety of issues that affected them living in Scotland, so we could share this advice with future generations. So Colourful Heritage decided to adapt and embrace technology and get in touch with a few familiar faces and also some new ones too using Zoom. Because of Zoom, we were able to connect with a wider range of people that we may not have done in the past. So we managed to conduct over 30 interviews, virtual interviews, in under 4 weeks. And in fact, much to our delight, our interviewees were very pleased to connect with us during this lockdown period. In fact, many of them found it a welcome relief being able to chat to somebody else, somebody new, being able to talk to other people. In fact, this book is now in its draft version and it's still to be published, so I guess you'll just have to watch this space. So some of the key learning points I would say during lockdown that we've learned is that it's really key, especially when we're all working from home, is to have excellent communication skills, really good communication with our core team, not just our core team, in fact, I would say, and beyond. So with our partners, with our people that we interview, and just anybody really who we have a good relation with. So, and that would involve using a variety of techniques. You can't just rely on being in the office and face-to-face interactions. It's to do with regular WhatsApp. That's one of the mediums that we used quite a lot during this lockdown, using emails and phone calls. And of course, regular virtual meetings were really important. And one of the other factors that was really key for us was having that flexibility of staff. The time the staff, they were available at flexible times during the day. It wasn't rigid, so we were able to work at different times as well. That really helped improve our productivity. So future plans, we plan to continue with virtual Zoom interviews for our database. We plan to release this book on lessons for living. And of course, we're also involved in Scotland's first British Indian Army War Memorial Project. And of course, there's so much happening at Colourful Heritage and it can suddenly change from one day to the next. You never know what's coming next. So I guess watch this space. Finally, I would like to thank everyone for their attention. And also to keep up to date with our activities, then please follow us on our social media platforms. Thank you.
That was brilliant. Thank you so much. What a great start to the event today. Thank you. I've got one or two questions, and then I think Eve has a couple of questions as well. So we can maybe split between the two of us. But you mentioned resilience quite a few times during your talk, and I just wondered, we've all been forced in a way to change our methods of communication, our methods of delivery, event delivery like today. And I just wondered if there were any of the adaptive delivery methods you've had to use this year that you will continue to use beyond this period of our life, basically, and if you think that helps contribute maybe to the resilience of your organisation.
I think for sure. I mean, I personally, I don't see the situation changing too quickly. So I think we're going to have to be using these kind of methods, you know, whether it's Google Meet or MS Teams or Zoom. I think we'll be using this kind of technique for quite a while, just because I also do feel you can capture a larger audience. You know, you can catch a much broader audience. You're able to capture people attending from abroad, not just here, you know, and it also cuts down on costs. So I guess for the foreseeable future, we continue to use Zoom, and also especially for interviewing elderly people, you know, they're very vulnerable. So they're not very comfortable in doing face-to-face interviews, which we would normally do. We would ask them to come to our office, and we'd have the room booked out, have a cameraman, have a camera person, have myself interviewing. So it's quite a lot logistically, whereas this way they're able to, you know, give their interview through Zoom, and then we can start to edit that way around. I think that's up to now. We've done interviews, but we've not done editing of the interviews using Zoom. We've only done editing with people in real person and created short videos, so we can make them into 7-minute videos as a life story, which has been actually quite valuable the last couple of weeks. There's been a couple of really prominent elders in the community that passed away, so we've managed to have their videos. It's given their families a lot of comfort. You know, the families have written in saying that it's given them a lot of comfort, especially their grandchildren. So I guess we will continue to use Zoom for sure, definitely.
And I suppose it's quite an interesting point, isn't it? Because this is obviously, it's been a shock to all of us, and it's impacted all of our lives, what has happened, you know, what has happened this year. But there are actually, you know, thinking positively, there's some really, really valuable learning opportunities from this year, and looking at how we can adapt our practice to go forward, sort of thing. You know, I don't have to be down in London for a meeting anymore, and that's really nice.
I have to say, I mean, although we were in lockdown, the first thing that we as a team came together and thought was, right, what can we do? You know, now using the fact that we're not going to be doing, because we tend to do a lot of live events, can't do all of those, so what are we doing? But we do a lot of other research work, a lot of making up resources, and like I showed you, the booklets. And I just feel that because I didn't have to be anywhere, or you know, even go into the office or go to places. For example, in previous years, I've not been able to participate in this event because we've always had remembrance events clashing. Okay. But this year, because everything is virtual, I'm able to take part in so many more events. I've taken part in so many virtual events and been able to run the events. So I just feel we've had more time, which means we're able to achieve a lot more during lockdown. I've never been busier.
Yeah. Yes, I know that feeling. It's been very, very hectic 8 months. Do you think, this is another question we've got here that someone submitted, do you have any priority areas for partnerships as we move into the sort of, I'm not sure we're there yet, but the sort of post-COVID-19 recovery period? Are there particular partnerships that you think can help with this next stage of your work?
To be honest, it depends what the partnership is. You know, at the moment we're in partnership with Glasgow Museums, and that's worked out really well. Very, very professional people. We're very professional. We're able to do the Glaswegian Asians exhibition. We worked in partnership for this for the schools booklets. I guess, I mean, at the moment the projects that we're focusing on just now are the British Indian Army War Memorial Project. So if there's anybody out there that could give us any advice or help, or you know, how to go forward, we're already working with the Glasgow City Council. We've had a working group established, so we are looking for partnerships, but it really depends on what our work is at the moment going forward. So yes, if anybody is interested in working with us, do write into us. Just Google up our website, and there should be a general email there.
And we can put people in touch as well if people want to get, absolutely, we'd love to do that. So wouldn't that be exciting if a new partnership came out of this event? Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to pass over to Eve, who I think has a couple of questions from the Q&A box. Eve, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me? I can't get my video on, though. It doesn't seem to want to turn on. Oh, there it is. Hello, everybody. Good morning. We've got a couple of comments in the Q&A, and I'd encourage people to, if you've got any comments you want to make or questions you want answered, to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and type them in, and we'll do our best to read them out. First of all, Saki, we've got a comment from a Mary Morrison, who just wanted to say thank you for an introduction to a wonderful project. So she's pleased. And but there is a question from Rosie in the audience, who said that says that the Her Story series sounds interesting, and wonders, is there anything from that series that you found especially inspiring?
Right. So the Her Story series, that. If you go into the sort of background of when Asian women would have come to Scotland, they've had a very different integration experience. So they came a lot later than the actual South Asian men. The men came on their own first. The plan was they'll work for 5 years and then they will go back to India or to Pakistan. But of course, then they started calling families. And when the women started coming over, initially they spent a lot of time being at home, looking after the children. But there came a point where they then wanted to start to contribute towards, family affairs and, let their own personalities come through and shine through. And I think for me, the most inspiring thing I found was that these women were very resilient. They were wearing so many, I can't just say several hats, they were wearing way more than several hats. They were mothers, they were daughter-in-laws, they were wives, they were helping out in their husband's businesses, so they could have been shopkeepers, but yet they had their own little identity, and within that identity they were pushing boundaries, they were making change. So if you go to our YouTube page, you can see all 4 Her Stories, and they're kind of one-to-one, very intimate interviews, and you learn how they manage to juggle everything, work and life. And I found that part of it very inspiring, almost as, positive role models for the rest of us, not just South Asians, but for others as well, that these ladies, sometimes they're not educated to, for example, a degree level, but yet they have the knowledge, they have the wisdom, and of course the experience behind them to make the change. I think I interviewed Pakistan's first lady, who's from Scotland. Her husband was the first Muslim MP in the whole of UK. So the work that she did on her own, without looking at her husband's work, she did a lot of work for women's rights and for ladies in Glasgow, especially in terms of language, breaking up the language barrier, making sure ladies had access to English classes, and of course, for children's mother toddler groups, she set them up. There were just so many inspiring words that they said. I think I interviewed Scotland's first South Asian female police officer, and the reasons for why she went into the police and what she faced while she was in there in terms of, racism from the public. We had very open conversations about what racism did you face, how did it make you feel, what did you do to change that. So I would definitely recommend the Her Story series.
Yeah.
So
great, thanks, great answer. We don't have any other questions at the moment, and I think we're kind of bang on time. So I think, Saqib, you can, thank you very much. That was great. That was really good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was amazing. Thank you. Brilliant. Okay, well, we'll move on to the next talk, but I know there's lots of themes there that we'll come back to, I think, in the wider discussion. Thank you. So next up, we have the Dundonald Castle crew, who are more formally known as the Friends of Dundonald Castle. Situated in South Ayrshire, this group has taken the lead with this heritage site, this visitor site. It's a fabulous site with a great on-site cafe. So if you've not visited it, please put it on your bucket list to go and visit, because it's really fantastic. Today we're going to hear from Lauren Welsh and Kirsten Kroll in spirit with their pre-recorded talk, and then we'll have a Q&A with Lauren after the talk. I'll see you on the other side.
Thank you so much for the invitation to Friends of Dundonald Castle to take part in the first of Scotland's Community Heritage Conversations. We're delighted to be joining you all virtually. Today we will briefly be looking at just a few of the adaptations we have implemented since the start of our COVID-19 journey in March 2020. My name is Kirstine Kroll and I'm the General Manager at Dundonald Castle and Visitor Centre, and today I'm delighted to be joined by my colleague Lauren Welsh. Our charity, Friends of Dundonald Castle, was established as a Scottish charitable incorporated organisation in 2014, but FODC was founded in 1996, so everything that we do now is built on a very strong foundation. The castle itself is a scheduled monument, and we currently have 9 trustees on our board, 9 staff members and 36 volunteers aged 10 to 90. Everything we do at Dundonald Castle is a team effort, and our volunteers really are the backbone of our charity. We have key partnerships with a number of organisations, including Historic Environment Scotland, Archaeology Scotland, the University of Glasgow, the Council for British Archaeology and South Ayrshire Council. Prior to COVID, the whole team had worked incredibly hard to ensure that we were financially sustainable without grants.
Community engagement lies at the heart of everything FODC does. Back in 2017, we held a charrette where we invited along lots of local organisations to discuss what community heritage meant to them. Unanimously, we agreed to the establishment of the Community Heritage and Education Programme. Over the last few years, this programme has helped us to increase our community engagement as well as our reach, with some of our members coming from as far away as Australia. The programme has also helped us to increase our education visits, with us now having an average of around 100 visits per year from organisations such as primary schools, secondary schools, colleges, universities, as well as community groups. We've also held over 30 free or subsidised community clubs and events, of which over 7,000 people attended in 2019. Most of these activities were actually suggested by our community. As well as all this, we also try and support as many local charities, groups and businesses as we can. And over the last year, we have won 6 national awards, including entering into the TripAdvisor Hall of Fame, retaining our 4-star Visit Scotland review and receiving the Voluntary Action for South Ayrshire Volunteer Friendly Award.
And then we faced lockdown and beyond. I'd like to turn our attention to look now at the impact of closing and reopening during the COVID-19 pandemic and our framework of resilience which we had to develop. So what happened? Well, Historic Environment Scotland notified us that we had to close the castle from 5 p.m. on the 18th of March 2020 in line with all other HES sites nationally. Friends of Dundonald Castle decided that we had to close the visitor centre at exactly the same time in direct response to both UK and Scottish Government directives. Apart from our HES keyholder payments and a small payment from South Ayrshire Council for participation in the Comfort Scheme, which provides public conveniences for the community, and some limited donations, our charity, like many, lost all income streams overnight. Each year, we rely heavily on strong income generation over the summer months from the 1st of April to the 30th of October to subsidise us over the quieter winter months, which traditionally run at a loss. Dundonald Castle's income loss for the period April to July 2020, based on last year's accounts, will stand at almost £46,000. Of course, none of the team were allowed on site for the duration of lockdown, and this proved to be really challenging as many of our volunteers and furloughed staff, like heritage organisations across the country, lost a large part of their weekly structure. So from day one, it became really apparent that supporting the health and well-being of the team and our wider community would be an absolute priority as well. We all individually and as a group tried to come to terms with a really rapidly developing situation. Developing resilience as best we could to support our colleagues and friends was imperative. I can truthfully say that I don't think we've ever worked harder as a charity. Lockdown may have started, but we never stopped. We put in longer hours every day with a much reduced staffing. Immediately we started to break down timescales into manageable chunks. Let's focus on getting to the end of April, then July, then October. Now we think in terms of Christmas and into next year, March, the end of the winter season, to try and keep it more manageable for everyone, less daunting and easier to focus. Very quickly we knew we had to find new ways of communicating. In the past we relied very much on human contact, seeing each other most days, sharing a chat and a hug and often a coffee and cake into the bargain, and having very regular social events for both the team and the wider community. At Dundonald we talk. Some of us more than others, and I am guilty as charged, but now we had to find a different way to do that. Good communication was going to be key. Talking and listening, but now we did it via text, setting up group chats, arranging virtual catch-up sessions and picking up the phone for that wee bit of much needed human interaction. It was a great way not to feel so alone and to keep an eye on how the team were coping, and indeed the wider community, with regular visitors keeping in touch through the same channels. We also introduced from the first week of lockdown virtual weekly debriefs and followed them up with short emails. This let us consult with all the team on major developments, all new policies and procedures, and we were able to make available new documents centrally. For the first time we set up a closed team area on our website to allow us to do that, and that worked really well. It was so important that everyone felt involved and included, that their opinions mattered and that we would act on their recommendations. The whole team had to feel confident with what the charity was thinking about and planning for, because we all knew that they would be the ones asked to implement the very many changes that we had to make to reopen both the visitor centre and the castle. We also wrote a wellness action plan and a mental health policy, and these really seemed to help to offer support and open conversations with those who really appreciated a willing ear and let us know the best way to engage with and support someone who may be having a really difficult time. Every week without fail I've sent out a wee light-hearted email on a Friday afternoon just to check in with the team and include some funny cartoons collated by one of our trustees. If it raises a wee wry smile during a difficult week, then it's done its job. We're all in this together, and there is a huge amount of support available for those who might need a little help at any time.
As well as health and wellbeing, health and safety was another key aspect in our resilience. Throughout the closure and even now, we are reviewing new legislation and directives that are sometimes coming daily from the Scottish and UK governments. We took the time to review all our policies and procedures and to adapt these as the guidance was coming in. For the first time, we also made all of these policies and procedures available centrally so that the whole team could access them and give feedback on them where they felt the need to do so. Team training was something that changed quite a lot for us. We are usually quite sociable, and team training would take place on site where everybody could grab a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and we would sit down and we would discuss any changes or training that was to happen, and we would get feedback face to face from the team. To try and accommodate this, we moved to online training and we were holding sessions on the Zoom platform. This was a little bit difficult at first because some of the team did lack confidence in accessing digital content. However, we just made sure that we were listening to them and giving them support where we could. Team collaboration throughout this process has been really, really important, and just by asking the team, what do you feel about this? What do you think about this? Will this measure work? Will that measure work? And just asking for their feedback, it's been really important because they were the ones that were on the ground. They were the ones that were going to be carrying out the daily tasks. And it also meant that because they were actively involved in the decision-making process, they became more aware of the content of all the policies and procedures that we had in place. For us, it was really important that we gradually came back to site, and so when we first started coming back we had fixed set teams so that if for some reason anybody was exposed to COVID, it meant that the whole team were not at risk of it, but only that one other person that was working on that team. It became quite apparent quite quickly just how much work had been generated from the new measures and the impact that this was having on the team. So just by having an enhanced cleaning regime, the staff and the team on site they had a much higher workload than what they'd been used to before, and so it was really important that we were communicating with them and just making sure that they were still comfortable and that they were coping okay with the new measures that were in place. As part of our health and safety resilience, we worked alongside Historic Environment Scotland to meet their minimum operating standards. For us, this meant submitting a 140-page document that compiled all of the policies and procedures that we'd put in place to basically make sure that everybody on site was safe, whether that was contractors, whether it was visitors or members of our team. We also received accreditation from the nationally recognised Good to Go scheme. And throughout this process, we communicated changes that we were making with our community. So we were very active on social media, and we uploaded walkthroughs of the implementations we put in place, and we also created our health and safety charter as well, which was basically our promise to the visitors that we would do certain things, and we were asking them to basically just make sure that they were adhering to it as well. Our final resilience point that we want to talk about today is our continuing community engagement. So most people will be aware of the importance of digital in everyday life just now. So these are just some of the things that we have been doing over the last couple of months. We are utilising social media to keep our community updated about what we've been doing throughout. So whether that's new measures or new menu items or anything like that, we are just making sure that our community are aware. We were also making sure that we kept in touch with our membership, and we made sure they were still going to get their monthly newsletters. Our Young Archaeology Club had to move online, whereas obviously we would usually do that on site. And we established our educational YouTube channel, which is filled with great videos about different aspects of the history of the castle. Throughout the summer months, our education officer was holding weekly Zoom education sessions for families where they could come along and do some medieval themed crafts. Digital became and still is quite important for us gathering feedback from visitors, staff and volunteers as well as external parties, just to make sure that we're getting it right and that people are happy with what we're doing. We're also listening to any recommendations that they have for us and putting them in place where we can. We are still holding weekly, sometimes daily meetings via digital platforms just to keep in touch and update on any progress that's been made. On site, we're very lucky to be open just now, and our focus has very much been about creating a safe community space and welcoming back a lot of people from our immediate community in the village of Dundonald who have perhaps been socially isolated throughout this pandemic, and probably those that are shielding as well. We've got anecdotal evidence that some shielding families have felt comfortable coming and using our facilities because they are very happy with the measures that we have got in place. Overall, the feedback that we've received about everything that we've done so far has been overwhelmingly positive, and that's something that we are very proud of. So what's next for FODC? Well, we're going to continue to adapt throughout the winter season. We have picked up some great resilience skills over the last couple of months, and we hope to be able to implement these to see us through what could be a difficult winter. We're going to start preparing for our summer season, which will start in April, and by that time we hope to be moving towards pre-COVID operational levels. We're also preparing to increase our visitor numbers in the castle as soon as restrictions allow. At the moment we are limited to just 2 households per hour, and as soon as we can increase that, we'll be ready to do so. We're going to continue to adapt our educational resources for digital delivery. We are aware that it could still be some time before educational visits can take place on site again. However, this is quite important to us and we still want to be able to deliver in this area. We're going to look to restart fundraising community events, and we have already provisionally booked our popular outdoor Shakespeare event for July 2021. Alongside this, we are also working out other dates in the calendar and penciling them in for now. Finally, we're going to stay connected with all of our community and also keep in touch with our regular groups and help them resume when it's safe to do so.
We would just like to conclude this short presentation with a few questions and key points which we as a charity have asked throughout both lockdown and our reopening, in the hope that there could be something here which may help you in your own journey. One of the few positives which came out of lockdown for our charity was that it gave us time to sit back and think properly about who we were, what we were trying to do, what were our aims and what services we provide. It gave us time to really think strategically about our future direction in lots of different areas, and to make sure that our core documents, policies, procedures were all reviewed, updated and in place. It may be time to just have a little think, if you haven't been able to do so already, to really consider, are you still the same organisation as you were pre-COVID? Can you take a little while to step back and look at your key aims and the services that you provide? Are your goals still the same now as they were before March 2020? And in the longer term, are they still valid going forward? Do you need to diversify? Do you want to diversify? And if so, into which areas? We've been absolutely overwhelmed by the amount of support and advice that is available within the heritage sector and indeed other sectors nationally. And I've listed here just a few of the different organisations which we have found very, very helpful, both through the provision of webinars and e-forums and training opportunities, and also just as a resource to go online and get some advice on areas that you may need a little help. One of the things I think we would all say at Dundonald is it's really key to try and be flexible and to have the ability to try and adapt as quickly as possible to a national situation which changes very quickly, and new legislation which has been brought in on a daily basis sometimes. At the end of the day, I think communication is key. Communication is vitally important in everything that we do. Do everything you can to support your team, your community and your wider contacts. That's the central tenet of everything that we do. We're all in it together. We are here to do what we can to support our team, our community, our visitors, and to try and keep people seeing the benefit of heritage throughout these really difficult months, and the support that can be to them. If there are any questions for us, please do ask us after the presentation, or of course feel free to get in touch anytime directly with us. Our contact details are on the following slide. Thank you so much for listening. I hope it's been helpful. Thank you.
Wow, that was brilliant. Thank you so much to the Friends of Dundonald Castle. And we've got Lauren with us today. Hi, Lauren. Are you okay to answer a few questions?
Yeah, of course.
Brilliant. So I've got one here which was pre-submitted, and I think it's really clear from your presentation that you really value your volunteers and you invest in your volunteers, and I loved the sort of pastoral care that you've demonstrated over the last couple of months, or 8 months for this. Do you think, taking all of this into account, there are changes to your volunteer programme that have resulted in positive development of your volunteers that you might continue using and utilising and developing as we move away from the current restrictions?
So I think one of the most important changes for us in terms of volunteers are just being able to take advantage of digital. It's just been so important. When we first did start going back to site, many of us couldn't actually be on site. It was very restrictive. And without the digital platforms and helping our volunteers learn these digital platforms, just wouldn't have had the same level of engagement. So I thought, like, I do think that's a very important part of it. But I mean, even when we shut back in March, we kept in touch with our volunteers all the way through. So even though a lot of the time volunteers aren't actively involved a lot in the actual decision making, we kept them very much involved in that, and we were putting out the risk assessments and saying, can you think of anything else? And they were actively involved in helping us with that side of it as well, which, although they have done before, just not to the same level. So just keeping engaged with everybody, I think, was just really, really important.
I think that's a really interesting point, and how as we move to more digital communication, it can bring more equity to situations, can't it? I'm finding that with meetings and the utilisation of digital whiteboards, it can ensure that everyone's got a voice in some of these situations and activities, and I think that's a really important method to go forward with, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you get so much more engagement from the team as well. It's being able to pull up that document and actually work with it whilst you're in that Zoom meeting or whatever platform it is that you might be using. You can actively edit it based on what people are saying at the time. It does make a huge difference.
Yeah, and it's a lot more fun, isn't it?
It's a lot more fun than just attending training and somebody like reading out the rules or and trying to do feedback that way. I think when it's actually in front of you and it is a live document and you are working through it and everybody's throwing ideas at you, it's good. It's a good method. It's definitely one we will keep going forward with.
Fantastic. Well, I think Eve's got a few questions as well in the Q&A box. So Eve, do you want to take over?
Yep. Hello. Thanks for that, Lauren. That was great. Just first of all, to say that there's just a comment from Ashona in the audience who just says, looks like a great place and she can't wait to visit. So
definitely come and visit.
I'm going to confess that I've never been there either, so it's on my list. There's one question from Rosie in the audience. Again, it's following up from the last one, from the last question. She's just saying that it looks like an awful lot of hard work putting in all the health and safety measures and so on, but are there any key changes that you will keep in place post-COVID?
Yes, so one of the biggest changes that we had to make was to integrate an online booking system, which is something that we'd never ever used before, and it was something that we had to implement as part of our health and safety. It's definitely one that we're going to keep. It has made life a little bit easier. We're much more aware of how many people are going to be on site, and we can add in restrictions when we need to, and we can relax those restrictions when we don't need to as much. Like I said, we didn't have anything like that before, and learning to work with a system's been really, really important for us, and hopefully it will continue to do so going forward.
Yeah, great. I think a lot of us are going to be doing a lot more online now. We're getting so used to it. But sometimes people get fed up with it, and that's the topic of the next question from Jane Miller, who's with Archaeology Scotland. She says, thanks for the great talk. She says you've moved your Young Archaeologist Club online and wonders about what sort of levels of engagement you've been getting. Jane also runs the YAC branch, and the families in that aren't very keen to do online sessions. They're all just a bit zoomed out. Is that an issue, or how have you found it?
Yes, it's definitely an issue. Hi, Jane. You'll know that it is an issue that we're having across the YAC network, is just trying to keep up those levels of engagement. We tried doing active sort of arts and crafts sessions. We tried doing the archaeology field school that was was online over the summer, and so many of them came along to start with, and then just as the months went on, it just did start to dwindle. I think it is just this idea of digital fatigue, that everybody is getting sort of, not so much bored, but it is difficult to keep that engagement up when these kids, they want to be on site, they want to be digging, they want to get their hands dirty, and it's really difficult to do that through a computer screen. So we are actually having our next big YAC meeting with all our leaders towards the end of the month to discuss new ideas and ways that we can try and promote that engagement again. But I mean, anybody that's got any ideas, throw them this way, because we're open to anything.
Yeah, well, great. I'm sure Jane will be in touch with you about that one. I think I'm looking at 2 or 3 screens here. I think that's all the questions that people have put in. So you may stand down. Thanks very much. Back to you, Cara.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Thank you, Eve. But thank you so much, Lauren, for that, and the team to produce that talk. So that was just really fascinating to hear about. And I know, again, we'll be coming back to some of those themes in the discussion. But next up, we have the Grimsby Community Association. And this association aims to be a social and practical focus for the Grimsby community, to link it to other US groups in support of island traditions, skills and Gaelic culture, to the point of access, to be the point of access for visitors to the USI Outer Hebrides Islands. And this year, they saw the launch of the Grimsby Boat Haven, a multi-year project to develop the first maritime heritage centre in the Western Isles, which tells the story of the Stuart boat builders. I'm really excited to welcome Matthew Topside, Programme Leader with the Grimsby Community Association. And first we'll hear Matt's pre-recorded talk, and then we'll have the live Q&A. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Matthew Topsfield, Programme Leader and Manager for Grimsby Community Association, here at our Community Heritage and Visitor Centre on the island of Grimsby, which is part of North Uist in the Outer Hebrides. Before I talk about how we've addressed some of the challenges this year, I'll just introduce who we are and what we do. We were set up in 1999 as an unincorporated association with a focus on community activity, really addressing concerns around heritage and culture being at risk, opportunities for social gatherings and coming together, economic stimulus that would benefit the island and community of Grimsby, and environmental concerns that are common to most community groups. We changed our structure to that of a SCHC in 2014, which allowed us to acquire property. We acquired the former Free Church building on Grimsby in 2014, and after extensive community consultation, we settled on 5 key activities to be delivered through the Community Heritage and Visitor Centre. This included providing a permanent dedicated home for our community archive collections, which had previously been stored in boxes, under beds and on top of wardrobes, as a venue for Gaelic as a living language and Gaelic culture, as well as the local post office counter, which was in need of a permanent home, a cafe where people could meet and have a natter, and local food. For example, we have allotment plots in a greenhouse that local people can use, as well as a local produce market. It's important to note that we're the only public gathering space on Grimsby since the closure of all of our shops, churches and schools. So it's the best place for people to come and meet locally on the island of Grimsby. These are our buildings. This is a photo from the 1970s, we think. The church on the left and the former manse on the right. After we acquired the building of the church, we undertook an extensive renovation process and remodelled the interior. And it now provides a vibrant and popular community space for heritage events and activities, and for local people and researchers to access the archive collections, including through our Heritage Access Point, where people can view photographic albums, local history information, and videos that we've produced on local history. A couple of years later, we acquired the former manse building and grounds in order to provide a small, unaccredited independent museum, which houses some exemplars of the Grimsby boats. This is a nationally recognised style of boat that was built here on Grimsby by one family, the Stuarts, for about 150 years, and we think they built about 1,000 boats in that time. Many of them had been lying on the shore and were rotting away and were at risk of being lost, and we'd spent 20 odd years documenting and recording them, but it was important to be able to provide a home for some of the exemplars where people could visit them and learn more about the boats themselves and the Stuart boat builders. We've also been able to provide a workshop and demonstration space, an activity room for exhibitions, talks, events, video screenings and school visits and such like, as well as a shop and office. These are the buildings as they were completed just at the beginning of this year. We also linked the wider heritage and cultural attractions on the island of Grimsby, including the Grimsby Boat Trail, which is a self-guided trail of 3 discrete sites around the island where people can learn more about our maritime and fishing heritage. Uist Wool, which is an artisan spinning mill producing high-quality knitting and weaving yarns. Callan Shellfish, who have a fish counter and cafe using the produce landed at Callan Harbour itself, along with Iron Age wheel house on the north side of the island, which offers one of the best visitor experiences of any wheel house in the Western Isles. So we act as a vital visitor hub for people coming to visit Grimsay. In terms of management and finances, about half of our income is sourced from project grant income, with the other half of our own earned income generated through our events and activities. We don't receive any revenue grant funding from local authority at all. We're managed by a committee of 5 who are elected from the membership and meet on a monthly basis, and the full membership meets about quarterly in a normal year. And we employ 3 members of permanent staff, although these total less than 1 full-time equivalent. That's myself as programme leader and manager, and my colleague Anne, who is our community engagement officer and responsible for our events and activity programming, and an assistant who deals with everything in between. Along with a cafe operator who operates the cafe on a franchise basis as her own business, and we currently have a little bit of project funding to employ a Gaelic officer on a project basis. The challenges that we face this year have been significant, as they will have been for all community heritage organisations. We lost almost all of our income. Our own earned income has been very limited this year with lockdown over the summer period and only a very short visitor season at the tail end, which didn't generate a great deal of income for us this year. We do get a little bit of money from Post Office Counters Limited, but that doesn't cover the cost of staff time to operate the post office counter. Unfortunately, our major project grant was coming to an end and did end at May 2020. And because funders have refocused their programmes on responding to the pandemic, we haven't yet been able to identify a suitably sized grant programme to replace that project grant funding. At the beginning of lockdown, we had to take a decision about staff resourcing. Our staff were engaged on a self-employed basis, so we weren't eligible for the furlough scheme. So we decided to keep them on winter hours rather than increasing their time as we might do through the summer months with new activity and events. This meant that we could eke out our reserves and yet keep them actively engaged and working for some of that time at least. We of course had to halt all of our major activity at that time. We have 2 workshops that are still postponed because they very much are related to manual heritage skills, so traditional basket weaving skills and also an art skills workshop. Although they're fully subscribed, the delegates are happy to have their bookings carried over until we can actually host those. But most of our projects have been compromised in some way or another because we do very much rely on bringing people together to conduct our heritage activity, particularly gleaning information from the local community, sharing ideas, reminiscing, and prompting memories and things like that. So that has been very difficult. In responding to the pandemic, the first and foremost highest priority has been to support our local community. In common with many rural areas, our community is largely older, and of course these are the people who are tradition bearers. They carry the memories and the skills and the experience about the heritage that we rely on so much. So it's been very important to look after them, as well as many people being our volunteers that keep the projects going. So working in tandem with our local community council, we've helped to deliver hand sanitizer and information leaflets to every household on Grimsay, along with care packages to those older residents. The Grimsay Boat Haven project itself was fortunately near completion when lockdown came into place. The builders had moved off site in late February, early March, with just snagging issues and finishing touches remaining to be completed. But we did have to cancel our 2-day launch event over the Easter weekend, which was a great shame because we couldn't share this opening with our supporters and our funders and our local community. But we do hope to do that next year or as soon as we can possibly do it safely. Instead, we produced a video to have a virtual launch event, and we posted that on our website, and that was well received. During lockdown, we made plans for COVID-safe opening using a booking system where a single household would make a prior booking to visit the Boat Haven on an exclusive basis, so there were no issues about social distancing, and we would clean thoroughly between visits. This was actually twice delayed, once waiting for the relaxation of lockdown, and then when we were ready to launch it, there was a local outbreak on the Uists, so we did have to postpone it a bit further. But we have now received our first visitors, and that booking system, the process seems to be working well. We're delighted to be able to welcome people to the Boat Haven at last. But this does show that we do need to be agile and flexible in the way that we are responding on even a day-to-day basis. It's hard to tell where the restrictions are going to go, how they're going to change, what circumstances might crop up from one day to the next. So you do need to be agile in dealing with those. And you also need to be communicating clearly with your visitors and your local community about what services are available, what your hours are, what the booking process is, but also to manage their expectations, because their visit isn't going to be the same as it might normally be. So you do need to manage those expectations so that they're not disappointed when they do get here. So this is the new Boat Haven now receiving new visitors. We also had a major project underway prior to lockdown, which was under the banner of Island Ways. This is a heritage mapping project where we're looking at the built environment on Grimsay and the way that people have interacted with that, lived in it, worked in it, and moved through and around it over time. This would normally be done through workshops and working groups in person in our centre, but of course we've had to find different ways of doing that and different methods. So where possible, we've been conducting socially distanced one-to-one interviews, and particularly easy during the spring and summer months when we had fine weather and could do those outside. But we've also been doing those remotely, either by telephone or Skype call, or using other online and virtual means such as Zoom meetings. So these new technologies and new methods have been very useful and are great, but we haven't really been doing anything innovative or inventive ourselves. It's just really looking around, seeing what others are doing, what technologies are available, how these can be adapted and fitted to your own circumstances and your own project. But it has been necessary to support some people in working with these new technologies and these new methods. For example, some of our older residents, we've helped to set up the Zoom app on their tablets, for example, and to get them started with that. We've also produced a short video which tells the local community about what we've been doing during lockdown with the project and the information we've gathered, and how we're using it and inviting them to contribute to that going forward. So I'll play you a couple of short excerpts.
Umbliona, Hakoman hires nach Grimsay, Grimsay Community Association. Vi can't recht Grimsay, tron frauschek klechgien in nille. Can't sneeuw klechgien agus klechgien wadu. Hashin vi krunja hug echt in dain, na toklichen, agus gach kerning in jelling, agus na daun. Hakutja goed karsten leanig, fisra hug van de Jakobé, agus draster, hanisra hug zijn ule sabertje aan hasklan Grimsay, aan gamle hadi.
So the video introduces the project and the progress that we've made with it. We then go on to detail how we're going to use the data to produce an online map, which will make it more available to people than by just having a map in the centre to visit.
Hier de hole tuie het in jelijn, let dat jarak. Agus is gach tui, hier ene medair, maar de sannig in de ko haun salaju, ko van there, agus bekant de jachtrie there.
We then go on to invite people to contribute to the project by checking the information that we've collected is correct, adding any information that's missing, and to provide new information that we can add to the map as well. So we hope this will be a useful tool for people to engage going forward. We've also been adapting other activities. So normally we might host events or talks in the centre, but we're moving those online. This is where the internet has really been a useful tool, and we've started to utilise it as a really effective means of reaching out. But again, I'd reiterate that we do need to support people in engaging with it and working with it in new ways. And it's particularly important to be aware of how people do engage with our activities and to make sure that we're being open and inclusive to all. If you're running a Zoom event, it's very easy to just pop it on social media and think everyone's going to find out about it and reach you. But not all of our members are using Facebook and such like. So it's still important to post notices on postboards and in the local paper and places like that. And also, just remember that people don't just have to use the app or a PC to log into a Zoom meeting, it is possible to dial in from any ordinary telephone, and they can engage with it over the phone. And some of our members have done that and found it works okay. Also, during lockdown, we had to deal with the issue of conducting our AGM, and really it was very useful finding the guidance and advice that was available on the OSCE website specifically for conducting AGMs and what they would accept in terms of deviation from your constitution. So I would recommend checking out the information that they have. Likewise, for any funded projects, many funders are being lenient at this time. In terms of our ongoing financial sustainability and the challenges in the year ahead, we really do need to see a return of visitors in a COVID-safe way to our centre. We are a community heritage and visitor centre, so we do depend on people coming into the building, and that does support our earned income. But it does have to be in a safe way, of course. There is some optimism about tourism in the Outer Hebrides. We are an inherently socially distanced tourism destination. Our communities are quite well dispersed. A lot of our activities are outdoors, beach walks, hill climbing, nature watching, those kind of things. But to get here and to stay here, that was all dependent on the prevailing restrictions at the time. But the tiering system that we're operating under at the moment does seem to be helpful for us. We're currently under Tier 1, but that could, of course, change going forwards. I think for a longer term goal, we would like to see a kind of slower tourism in the Outer Hebrides. There's been a focus in the past on kind of island hopping and moving quite quickly through a number of islands. And we feel that maybe spending a longer period of time on a single island or group of islands might be a better way of experiencing what we have to offer in a more COVID-safe way. Our activity programming is resuming, and we are adapting to it in an online way. It would be nice to host physical workshops in the building again when we can do that. But of course that will involve increased overheads. So for example, we are spending more money now on cleaning and sanitisation supplies. We do have subscription fees for Zoom, so that's an added cost. And likewise with transaction fees, where we're now taking cashless contactless payments, you do have to pay a transaction fee on iZettle and PayPal. So whereas before we would receive 100% of the cash or bank transfer fee, we're now paying a little bit of money to PayPal for those transactions. That's some lost income. Related to that is a need for a realistic pricing model for online events, and we have seen a trend for Zoom events to be priced quite low compared to an event that you might attend in person. That's not really something that we can address as an individual organisation. I think there does need to be some work done on addressing people's expectations and the expectations around pricing for these events, because we do still have the same overheads and costs in delivering such events. And also grant programs really do need to start refocusing on the core heritage activity. Yes, it is important that organisations adapt to COVID going forward. But we have a number of pipeline projects which are related to heritage, which we would like to complete. That includes linking our buildings together as one complex, improving the Grimsay Boat Trail, making them more accessible to visitors, and we also aspire to have a pathways project looking at the old walking routes and trackways around the island. These are all heritage projects, but they are also adapting to COVID in their various ways. But we do rely on those grant programs starting to refocus on core heritage activity, which some of them are starting to do, but you know, it is difficult at the moment when you know, we have little grant funding available to draw on. So here, for example, you can see our buildings are currently discrete, separate buildings when they are actually, in fact, envisaged as one complex. So finally, as an organisation, are we more resilient? I think the answer is yes. The experience that we've gained over the last 7 months has made us more able to respond to the changing circumstances and to be more agile. And we do have better processes in place. So our risk assessments are much more thorough, and our visitor hygiene and safety procedures are much more rigorous than they used to be. And we are also much more focused now on ensuring a high quality visitor experience because we have this adversity, these constrained circumstances we're working in. So the visitor experience is very foremost in our minds. But fundamentally, we do have this big challenge that a lot of our activity relies on bringing people together to have that authentic and meaningful experience. And we do really rely on getting on top of the pandemic to be able to do that. So that really wraps it up. I'd like to thank you for listening, and if you'd like to learn more, then please do visit our website or drop us a line. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that. Matt, are you here?
Yep, I'm here. Hello.
Oh, hello. Got so many windows in front of me. That was fabulous. I think there's so many themes, and obviously all of us now want to move up to where you are because it just looks like the most beautiful and wonderful area. I think we've got a few questions, but I was just going to ask a quick question about, you have had some success moving some of your activities and engagement online, but I wondered, given the demographics of your audience and also your remote location, how in the long term is that, do you think, not so much a sustainable but a viable way to go forward with your events? Because I think you work in a very different area to some of our other papers we've seen today.
Well, we're in the US, which is the southern part of the Western Isles, and it's actually a group of 6 or 7 islands that are all connected by causeways. So Eriskay in the south through to Bernerain in the north. And if you're going to drive that, it would take you maybe an hour and a half if there's no traffic, but a lot of it's on single track roads with passing places, so it could take much longer on a busy day if you're against the traffic and camper vans. So we're very geographically dispersed, but within that area we only have a population of about 4,500 people living here on a permanent basis. So low population, widely dispersed, a long journey to get to places. And in the winter, if you're putting on a talk, some kind of event of a winter's evening, if somebody's got to travel a long way and the weather is bad, the causeway might be closed because it's not safe for them to get here. So I think having moved to having some events through Zoom, for example, could be quite useful to us in the longer term, and maybe doing events in a hybrid way where we have an event physically in the building, where we have people here in the building, but the presentation is also streamed via Zoom, might work for us in the longer term, because particularly in the winter months, as when it gets dark early and the weather's bad, it can be difficult to entice people out to an event at the centre. Even though the centre's cosy and warm and comfortable, and we've got a solid fuel stove and it's nice and warm, and just getting here can be a physical challenge. We are lucky that a lot of our communities have got super fast fibre broadband now on the US, so connectivity in terms of internet is generally pretty good, although some of our townships don't have it yet. But I think working in a hybrid way, with physical events in the centre and streaming them online would work for some of our activities, whether things like talks, maybe weekly sessions, things like that. But there are practical activities that we undertake, like the basket weaving I mentioned, like traditional boat building skills that you really can't do at home because they require specialized tools, materials, and also that physical one-to-one, you're not quite holding the tool right, or you need to bend the willow this way or that, you can't do that effectively on Zoom.
Maybe you could have a fundraising event where you have an online Kaylee, because I'm pretty sure all of us on the line here would buy a ticket to that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, well, actually, since lockdown, there's been quite a few events with online Kaylee sessions. I mean, even the Western Isles Council has been doing a regular Friday Kaylee event, as well as other organisations. And they've been great, just fantastic for raising the profile of Gaelic music and song. And we Kayleys on a Friday is a great thing.
Well, I'm going to be Googling that as soon as we finish here today. Well, maybe after the rugby, but that sounds amazing. That's really good to know. I think, Eve, are you there? Eve, have we got some questions?
Yes, we've got a couple here. And thanks very much, Matt. That was a great talk. And you easily win the best Zoom background of the morning. Put the picture of boats there. Couple of questions here. One is from Deirdre, who thanks you very much for the fascinating presentation and promises to visit next time he's out there. Deirdre wonders if the traditional skills he's wondering about traditional skills for boat building. Do these have any sponsorship through a scheme like apprenticeships, or have they got any other funding? And also, are they only open to the local community? I think Deirdre wants to build a boat.
Okay. There's quite a few things in there I'll try to unpack. So the traditional boat building skills that were practiced by the Stuart boat builders here on Grimsay are continued through the craftsman manager at the Grimsay boat shed, which is just down at Callan Harbour. Ronald John there, he learnt the skills from the last of the Stuart boat builders. So those skills have been passed on, although they're not in the Stewart family anymore. Ronald John has that knowledge and those skills at the Grimsay Boatshed Trust, which is a separate organisation from us. Over the years, they've had a number of funded apprenticeship programmes. So a number of apprentices have spent a long time training with Ronald John and learning those traditional boat building skills. They don't have any active sort of funding for apprenticeships at the moment. But of course, as funding becomes available, then there will be more opportunities for that. So if anybody was interested in learning boat building skills and coming to live on Grimsay for a while and picking up those skills, then there could be opportunities in the future for that. Here at the community centre and the boat haven itself, we have plans to share some of those traditional skills as well through demonstrations. So we've got in our workshop space a little boat building demonstration set up ready to go. So it'll be a little dinghy. So on a regular basis, Ronald John will come up and do some boat building demonstrations where people can see the techniques being put into practice in building that dinghy. They can maybe get, excuse me, maybe get a chance to have a hands-on try at using some of the tools. So that will be happening here, and visitors can see and engage with that when they visit us. Also, we hope to use that space maybe to host kind of a winter project for the local community. So if we can find an old boat that needs some restoration work or something, then we might be able to bring that into the workshop space and get a group of community volunteers and people who are interested locally to come and work on that boat and to restore that, again, as a learning exercise, kind of an informal project. Of course, a lot of these things are dependent on finding funding to support the activity, but those are things we can try and do here. But currently the biggest way that the traditional boat building skills are being passed on is actually to the local secondary school. So for a number of years, the secondary school here on the Uists has had a traditional boat building course, and we helped to write the course for that. We developed the qualification for that course. Ronald John goes into the school once a week for a morning on a Wednesday and teaches a group of the local kids traditional boat building skills. And just like the dinghy project that we have here, they build a small dinghy at the school over the course of the year. And that's often, that's very popular. So the school didn't have any funding to run that course for a couple of years, but they just managed to get funding to start it up again this year. And when they canvassed the pupils, Ronald John can reasonably take about 6 pupils on the boat building course. And when they canvassed the pupils, there were 18 that were interested. So he actually agreed to take 10 of them this year. So he's got his largest class ever of pupils at the secondary school learning traditional boat building skills at the school, which is fantastic.
I think the idea of learning boat building at school on the curriculum for excellence, that's just brilliant.
Yeah, fantastic opportunity for them, yeah.
That's great, really. Thank you very much. There's also a question from Shonag, who asks where to find the Island Ways video and project.
Okay, so the Island Ways video itself is kind of hot off the press. So it's a sneak preview here. We haven't yet published that yet. So we've got a steering group meeting for that project on Monday, and we're going to be looking at how we promote that more widely. So far, the project has been taking place by us engaging with the community directly, but we're now kind of at a point where we're ready to start promoting it and pushing it out more widely. So next week we'll be taking some decisions about just popping that up on the website and promoting it more widely and putting some more information about the project on there. So do watch our website, have a look at that, grimsay.org, keep an eye on that, and it will appear in due course.
Great, thanks for that question, Shonag. The other comment, I'm just scrolling down to see if we've got any more comments. Jasmine Wilkie just wants to thank you for a really interesting talk, and she can't wait to visit. And Jane Miller also loved the presentation and loved your comment about slow tourism. Jane said, if we're looking for silver linings to the current situation, I feel that lockdown has made many of us slow down and really explore our immediate localities. I think we can all agree with that, yeah?
Absolutely.
Apart from that, I think that's all the comments and questions we've had. So look, that was great. So thank you very much, and then back to Cara.
Thank you.
That's fab. Well, we've got a bit of time now for discussion, so I think there's a bit more of an opportunity for people to pitch in, again, either through the Q&A or if any of my fellow committee members would like to pitch in, then that would be amazing. I know that there is a comment about, is it digital fatigue, Eve, before you disappear?
Yes, that was from Sheena Irving. I had a follow-up comment on that. Can Sheena be unmuted? Is Sheena there?
Oh, Sheena has just popped up. This is exciting. Sheena, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
There we go.
Hi, Sheena, how are you?
There. Hi, everybody. I'm fine, I'm fine. Digitally fatigued, I think, is really the answer, because I work in digital all the time, and it's just driving me nuts with everything being online. Now, what we were saying was, what I was saying to Eve was about people really needing to get back into their projects and actually get their hands on and do things, but also that I agreed with all the people who said, you stand back. Everybody's had time to take a breath and not dive straight into a visitor centre season at the beginning of the season and actually think about what's coming up for the next year. I work in heritage interpretation anyway, and it's happening right across the country. People are actually taking a breath, you know, and really considering what they're going to do in the next year instead of careering from over the winter straight into the summer season again with the same stuff. So it's given everybody an opportunity, I think.
And I think you're right, Sheena. I think you can see that across the heritage sector, basically, is that it has, I mean, it's been so busy for so many of us, like the last 8 months, it's been extraordinary. But by the same token, it has maybe allowed us to question certainly our methods of delivery in some areas, and also our methods of reach as well, and looking at the strategic outline direction of our work. I know certainly there's been a couple of work streams I'm involved with where we've really looked at how we're delivering that and questioning whether it's the right way, basically. And it's been, I think now is the time, isn't it, for blue sky thinking in a way. And I know it's quite a cliched term, but it's actually, if we're going, when we emerge from this current situation, what do we want to happen? What world do we want to be in? And I think that's an exciting opportunity, and it's exciting for the heritage sector to consider these questions.
Yeah, digital's been further seeing where the benefits are, and they can now sort of tease it out and use the proper digital stuff, you know, but also not do everything digitally that heritage interpretation was veering towards at a great speed in the last few years. Everything was digital, everything was interactive, and I think it's given the Grimsey guy, he's absolutely nailed it, because they have so much hands-on stuff that I think that's where it's going to go. There's going to be a real division. There's going to be a spreading of where the how you present heritage is going to be, and a lot of the little community associations and things. It's a great opportunity for people to come and be able to present their stuff to very, you know, smaller audiences and people who want to get their hands on. Eve will know we're in Cowsland Smiddy, and we just we got to 2 weeks before lockdown, and the builders started a project which has taken 3 years to get the funding to do the restoration, and they started at the beginning of March and on an 8-week project, and that was it. 2 weeks they were shut, they were down, so we had no visitors, no way of opening at all. But it has actually made us just stand back and go, right, actually, what do we want to do with this? And now it's finished. Great, we're ready to go into the winter and take the winter to do the rest of our you know, think about what we're presenting for the next year. It's great, actually. It's worked very well.
That's really good, and that's a nice positive. Yay, it's a positive story. I'm not suggesting we, you know, just promote all the positive from this year by any stretch, but I think it is important to look at some of the positive outcomes you know, that's really great to hear, Sheena. I'm going to stop there. It's really great to hear.
Thank you.
It's great to hear. Eve, have we got any more Q&A questions coming in or comments?
The only question that's come in actually is from Barbara Priest asking if the videos of this conference are going
Yes, we're hoping to make them available on a website, and we can send round information once we work out where they're going to go. Yep,
that's all we've had.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, I had a few thoughts. It comes as no surprise to maybe a lot of you. I really was quite interested in, particularly in Matt's talk, about how a lot of the physical heritage spaces that we all work at are really important sort of social areas, community areas for our communities to join together and talk and speak. And I know for us as a committee, one of the big USPs of this event is an opportunity for us all just to sit down and talk to each other for a day and discuss our projects. And it's how to try and replicate that online is really difficult, and trying to plan ahead for that is going to be really difficult. And I just wondered if anyone had any thoughts on that. Maybe not. If anyone would like to pitch in, that you are all more than welcome. Okay, brilliant.
We have one comment from Camille Dressler on the Isle of Egg, and I'm sorry, I've lost it scrolling down. Camille was just saying that it's great, this formula and digital, we were talking about the importance of doing things that weren't digital, but for Camille on the Isle of Egg, this is the first time she's been able to get the community.
Yay, and welcome.
It's great to have you along, Camille. So yeah, but that's all we've had at the moment.
Well, no, I think that's a really great point, though, that we're hopefully new audiences on this one. Lauren, you have very lovely, in a very lovely way, put your hand up.
Yeah, I'm not going to give you any answers, unfortunately. It's just to echo what you've been saying. I mean, it is all very well and good that we are using these digital platforms. And I mean, today's excellent, it's brought everybody together, but it's not the same as sitting in that room and bouncing those ideas around. We've found ourselves having to be on site sometimes, even if it's just like 4 or 5 staff members to discuss projects, and we've literally sat in our cafe each at one table, like taking up the entire visitor centre, just to be able to have those conversations. So if anybody does have any solutions, then yeah, I think everybody's in the same boat, though. Everybody's still trying to figure out what works and maybe what doesn't so much.
And maybe going forward, the idea of hybrid events where you're utilising digital as well as physical opportunities and events and things like that might be the way forward, as well as we move more into social distance contact.
Yeah, it is one thing that we experienced. I did mention it slightly during our talk about our training. So our first sessions took place online, where we held a Zoom training event and invited everybody along. And then gradually, as we're moving back to site, when those staff members and volunteers came on site, we were then doing an online, we were actually doing an on-site training exercise as well. So we were getting the basics from the actual, like the Zoom sessions, but then it doesn't replace, unfortunately, sometimes the on-site experience that you really need to put things into practice.
And I think there's going to be a real learning experience actually when we do. It was great to hear, people mentioning hybrid experiences today. I think for people organising events like this and for people taking part in them as well, how do we create the right balance so that everybody who comes along is feeling like they've got, an equal experience? That's going to take, I think, a lot of training for those of us that sort of work in this area, as well as community groups as well. We want to make sure that I think I would want to travel and sit around the fire at Grimsey. I think I'd be a bit disappointed if I couldn't actually travel and do that. But that's going to be really important going forward.
I want to build a boat. I want to build a boat. Let's do that. Let's take SCHC on the road and do that next year. That would be amazing. no, and I think that's the thing is, it's also about the skills as well about to deliver this. When lockdown happened in March, and we were still doing events and delivery, I really struggled to adapt my sort of speaking delivery, you know, paper delivery online. And I had to sort of practice because it was just a completely different way of communicating with an audience. And it just took my head a little while to sort of get round how to do that in a hopefully effective way. Catherine, you've appeared. Would you like to?
Yeah, I just wanted to really pick up on something that Matt said about that I think is really interesting, the impact that digital can have if you're an independent community organisation and you really, really have to make money. You have no core funding whatsoever. And I mean, literally nothing. And I know what Grimsby didn't do. It's absolutely fantastic. But for the core funded organisations that we've seen, the big hitters in heritage who are getting government grants to them all the time, they have been able to create a lot of content, videos, all sorts of things, virtual tours, all the rest of it, that because they're core funded, actually they've been able to do that as part of their work, and they've been able to put it up for free. And for the independent heritage sector, most of these organizations, and I'm involved in one that's in exactly this position, you can't afford to put this content up for free. You can't make it for free, and you actually can't afford to then run it for free. And it does create a really big dilemma when you're then out competing in the heritage marketplace like this, and you just can't say, yes, great, you know, just here it is, it's on YouTube, here's the channel, it all costs you absolutely nothing. And saying, yeah, it's going to be £1, it's going to be £2. Do you know what? He's absolutely right. That isn't necessarily something that you can also do. And so I think finding, this is a question for the whole sector, then he is right that one small organisation cannot solve this. There needs to be an approach across the sort of national heritage sector, the funded heritage sector, and the independent heritage sector that makes it possible to charge for things in a way that you would if people were coming through the door.
Yeah, I think, and it's also hard to communicate that, I think, as you say, that when you are, as you say, when you're in a busy digital market and there are so many free events, to communicate that why you are asking to be charged. Matt, you've appeared on my screen. Did you have a point?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just grateful that Catherine's recognised that as well. I mean, it's a problem that we've really been grappling with here. I mean, when we set up the Community and Heritage Centre here, we very much didn't want to be wholly reliant on grant funding because we could see the way it was going. It was more competitive, it was hard to get all the grant funding you need. So we wanted to have an income stream that we could rely on, that we generated ourselves, that also wasn't ring fenced on specific activity, and we could spend in the way we wanted it to and on the projects we wanted to do. So we've got to the point now where, you know, last year we were earning enough of our own earned income to cover all of our operating costs, you know, staff and other overheads. And then the grant funding that we were receiving was, you know, paying for the heritage projects, either the activity or the capital investment that we needed. So that was a really great position to be in. So we've really kind of been blindsided by, you know, COVID, by losing all of that ability to wash our own face and cover our own costs. That's been a real big hit. And it's a point that I've been making in funding applications and when talking to, you know, big heritage bodies and things, is that, you know, we can't just rely on giving everything away for free or just charging a couple of pounds for a Zoom event, because you're still getting the same expertise, the same experience, the same quality of engagement from the tutors and the leaders and the people that are sharing their skills and knowledge. And we need to value that appropriately and make sure that people are expecting to pay an appropriate price for the experience they're getting, even though it's happening in a very different way.
I would add that I think at the start of lockdown, an awful lot of organisations were so terrified of losing their visitor base that people threw a lot of stuff online that was free. And actually, you know, there was a combination of that happening in the independent sector, but also other independent organizations who went, whoa, wait a minute, this is our product. If we throw it all online now, what are we going to sell later? Because that's the reality. If you're in independent heritage sector, until such time as Scotland has a system that actually recognizes the need to support all these organizations, which is the fact. I mean, it's you know, it's a lovely thought that it can all run on fresh air. But any of us who've worked in the sector know that it doesn't run on fresh air. And there really has been a problem with people giving away too much for free and over swamping the market. And I would urge everybody who's still thinking about putting so much online, just pace yourselves and then sell it, because why shouldn't you? You know, people are prepared to, you know, go out and have fun by paying for a meal, and they want to have fun doing something of an evening, but something that people have put all the effort into doing. It should be paid for. It shouldn't be going out for free.
I think when we're, I think Lauren's just popped up, so we'll go to Lauren in a second. But do you feel that we as the heritage sector have the skills to make those arguments and to articulate those arguments and to develop that sort of delivery structure where, because I think we maybe need outside help on how we, marketing is quite a corporate way of how we call it, we refer to it. But it is a sense of marketing and basically the message of this is why we're charging you for this and this is why. I
think we've got the skills.
Do you think so? I think. Sorry, that sounded really odd. Do you think so? That's not what I think.
I really think that, you know, and I think in many ways the independent heritage sector is uniquely able to do this because they are organisations that are made up of volunteers who actually have the most astonishing range of skills, because a lot of them are crossover from other sectors of industry. Whereas I think one of the problems that can come with, as it were, the authored heritage sector, the sort of core heritage sector, that people tend to be heritage people. Whereas actually in Grimsby, as you will find in, you know, every part of the heritage sector, the people who make up heritage groups there, by and large, don't come from a heritage background. And they often have a really, really wide skill set.
Yes. Yeah,
actually,
absolutely.
The question of recognizing the professionalism that exists out there in umpteen community heritage organizations, and knowing that actually if they are listened to, trusted, given the as it were, the peer respect that yes, you can make that, then, you know, the voices can be loud and clear and can be really powerful.
No, I think that's a really good point. Lauren, you maybe had a point.
I did, but it was probably like a good 3 minutes ago.
Oh, sorry.
The conversation slightly moved on from that. No. It was just to basically echo again what Matt was saying about, it's very, for people that are so community based and we do rely on our community coming to site, it's all very well and good talking about digital events and maybe doing talks and things like that, but I mean, people want to be on site. For example, one of our biggest community groups is, believe it or not, a Scrabble group who come to visit us every single Tuesday, and obviously throughout this pandemic they've not been able to do that, but they are still chapping on our door on a weekly basis saying, can we do it yet? Can we do it yet? And that's just not something that we can move online. And as a result of that, we are losing income because they're not buying their teas and their coffees whilst they're sitting there, they're not buying cakes and things like that, and it is an integral part of
your business model.
We are. Also, we've not had any events this year, which is another key funding aspect for us. We would have lots of community events on site, whether that's one of the big ones that we had to cancel this year was a Shakespeare production that comes, and it's a big outdoor event, and we easily get about 200, 300 people coming to us, and there's just no replacement for that. So yeah, one of the events we put on this week, we put on a talk last night, and unfortunately we did try and charge £3 a ticket to come and listen to one of our talks, and it just didn't get the reception that we thought it would. It wasn't as popular as we thought it would be, but if that had been on site, it would have sold out. Even though the ticket price would have been more expensive, the ticket price would have been £5 or £6, but they would have paid that to come to site, but they won't pay the £3 to come online as well. But that could be to do with the audience though as well. It could be that our usual audience aren't as digitally inclined, or this idea of going back to the idea of digital fatigue as well, that people don't want to sit in front of a computer all day and then come out to a talk at night, again, watching that computer screen.
And I think these are really important themes, aren't they, to consider going forward, because this existence is not going to end in the next couple of months. It's not even going to end if we get a vaccine in April or May. Like, this is something that's relatively long term that we're going to have to sort of grapple with. So we have to work out and find a solution for this. But that's really valuable. Thank you for talking about that, Lauren. Eve, I think there's some further questions that have come up on the Q&A.
Yes, sorry, there were quite a lot of questions coming in when that discussion was going on, and it was
well, we've got time, so let's hear those questions.
Not with them. Well, actually, we've got Lucy James had a question, and we have her on screen now. So, Lucy, could you unmute yourself and join us?
Hi, Lucy.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Oh, you can't see me. Hang on a sec. I haven't got my video on.
That's a beautiful, beautiful modern building now. I love it.
So that's actually my normal workplace, which is the Adam Smith building at the University of Glasgow. It's a classic of its type. So, yeah, my question, I suppose, was around, talked a bit about kind of obviously this issue about, like, you know, charging and revenue raising and things like that. And obviously digital it does sort of allow you to keep in touch with your local community and your members and your audience and things like that, but perhaps also offers the opportunity to build new audiences, possibly abroad. And I think Colourful Heritage mentioned one of their projects which kind of linked people with family members abroad. But I just wondered if other organisations had a thought, or people here have thoughts about whether it's worth doing that. Is there other options for sort of, you know, maybe expanding revenue kind of raising opportunities by using this as an opportunity to link with people abroad who might be interested in heritage here in Scotland?
Yeah, is Saqib still here? Saqib, can't quite see her. Is there anyone that would like to come in and talk about that? Because Matt, brilliant.
Yeah, hi. We haven't really done anything in terms of reaching out to new audiences abroad, although Grimsay is quite a small island, but Hebrideans have moved a lot around the world. So there is a huge diaspora from Grimsay, and we do use social media quite a lot to reach out to that wider community, and people do engage with us through that. So we do have those links across the world, and as we start putting on more events through Zoom, I'd hope that more of those people that would like to engage with their native heritage here on Grimsay could have the opportunity to do that. But even domestically, it's offered lots of opportunities for us. So, you know, I've never attended this conference before. It's great to be able to do that from Grimsay, because like others on island communities, you know, the ferries are very unreliable. You know, we've had gales blowing all week. So even if I had planned to come to a physical conference today, I probably wouldn't have got there because the ferries would have been cancelled. So that's been really useful. But also something else that we've started working on this year during lockdown is a new project working with the Scottish Fisheries Museum in Anstruther. And they put together a project with joint funding from the LEADER programme in Fife and LEADER in the Outer Hebrides to do a project called Knitting the Herring, which is looking at Scottish Ganseys and the heritage of knitting Ganseys and collecting and documenting them. And just on Thursday evening, I delivered a talk to them about Eriskay Ganseys, which are a very specific type of Gansey that's knit here in the Outer Hebrides. I'm actually knitting one just now.
Oh wow!
The conference.
Oh, we should capture that for Twitter. That's amazing.
That's a collaborative project that, you know, might not have come about or happened in the way that it's happening without lockdown. So I think COVID has presented a lot of opportunities and forced people to work in new ways and work in new partnerships that we might not have done otherwise. Yeah. So that's been really valuable to us on a national scale, and I hope that, you know, we can continue to reach out and make our heritage more well known, more widely, and, you know, hopefully worldwide as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Gavin, you've popped up. Did you have a...
Yeah, I couldn't help myself, sorry, but it's lovely to see you all, and some fantastic presentations. I think this issue around the conversation is because we're trying to deal with so much. What we're experiencing just now is, you know, we're so networked and we can connect globally and locally. It's amazing. So we're part of this really kind of complex ecology that we share. But at times we're talking about audiences, you know, at times we're talking about service users, you know, potentially, you know, the people we're trying to help or who, you know, interact in different ways. But then there's also customers. So I think actually separating out potentially, you know, these different categories when we're looking at, you know, comms and marketing, fundraising, but as a number of speakers have already said, you know, we're all thinking about purpose just now. You know, why does community heritage matter? Why is it vital? And why does it deliver in so many ways to that community, which could be global, could be local, and it's certainly national in Scotland. So just really a comment rather than a question.
No, brilliant. Thank you for that. And I think these are themes that we're going to pick up at our next event, as well as I'm going to talk more about digital gaps and digital divides. And we have a speaker from Wales who's going to talk about digital deserts in rural communities, because I think that's something we haven't quite delved into today, is that there is digital gaps and there is digital exclusivity, and that can restrict people's engagements on a lot of our activities. Even then, Catherine, and then I think we'll have to move on to our next activity.
Well, I was going to say there have been several comments coming through on the Q&A, and quite a few of them from Sheena Irving, so I'd like, can we bring Sheena back in to speak to join this conversation? But just as she comes in, could I just say that somebody else has asked about using chat rooms so that people can talk about particular topics, projects.
Okay.
And this is something that we did consider and we thought about doing, but we got cold feet and backed away because it seemed just it was going to be too complicated. But I think that as we find our feet and get a little bit more confident with this format, then that's something we'll return to. So that was from Jane Miller, actually. So Jane,
oh, thanks, Jane. No, but I think, and in our slight defence, this is the first time SCHC has gone online, so we were just trying to make sure, we were trying to be kind to ourselves and make sure that we could deliver a seamless event while not adding too many bells and whistles on. But we'll look at those chat rooms for next time, I think.
Sheena's here. Sheena.
Yes.
Sheena, hello.
You got me. Am I on?
You are on. Hello,
Good.
Sheena.
Hi there. Well, I made a couple of points, Eve, which you saw, and it's really down to us being well, I'm a professional in heritage interpretation, and we just had our conference last week online, and 80, 90 people almost all said the same thing, that they've been working for nothing in their communities, using their heritage skills to deliver stuff just for wee places round about. We're lucky enough to have a person next door to the Smitty who's a filmmaker, and she went and filmed the Smitty for Doors Open Day, but you know, she's got no work at all. We can't pay her. And it's fine, you know, it all was a great big rush in the first couple of months. Everybody was hands up and we'll all go and do stuff for our community. But there is you know, people are getting tired of it now, and I think we have to watch how much we expect of everybody to have some input. People's mental health, I think, is going down the pan a wee bit, and to keep asking people to do things for nothing, we're going to be in trouble at some point. Our farrier is working. We're lucky that he is considered animal welfare, so we still get a rent from him, and we also got a resilience grant from Midlothian Council, which we've half spent keeping the electricity on, but you know, that's not going to last every year. So yeah. I think we've got to be careful how much we ask people to do of what, you know, knowing what their skills are, because they're not getting work in that. It was all of, I'd say, very sort of everybody rushed in with their hands up going, yes, yes, we'll do all this stuff, and thinking it was only going to be for a few months, but I think we've got to think of it in a different way.
Absolutely. Adapt to this new world. Thank you very much for that, Sheena.
Okay, no bother.
Catherine, have you got one final point from Catherine, I think, and then we'll move.
Yeah, it actually, because for those who don't know, because it's not on the screen, I'm here on behalf of the Scottish Community Heritage Alliance, and I was just very conscious of all the things that have been said sort of in the chat just now, of a conversation I had with Wick Heritage Centre early on in the pandemic, where they said and it's on the theme, I suppose, of sitting back and thinking about it and thinking what we do and how we go forward and what we offer and what we give. And they were saying that actually they'd suddenly thought, hang on, why are we having to constantly chase the dollars across the threshold? And where is that dollar coming from? And basically, we're always looking for the next visitor and what we can make from the next visitor. And we need to turn around and face our community and find out what the community wants and what we can do for the community. And it's really talking about where the money comes from in this respect. One of the things that the Alliance looked at really closely last year and still considers is the extent to which community and heritage, as community heritage, is actually part of the community third sector and how much it's part of the heritage sector. And a really interesting thought process perhaps going forward is to say, yes, if we are really community facing, we're providing strong community services like, you know, Matt is with Grimsby, making sure that things get out to people's homes and that they are a hub in that respect, then actually funding through the third sector and community sector is a really interesting way to look. You know, goes into so many agendas around health and well-being and social impact, social cohesion. And actually that's not necessarily something that the heritage sector can help with, but the community sector and third sector really, really can. It's part of the changing narrative about what community heritage is and where it's looking, where it's facing and where it wants to go. So that
I think you're right. No, it's a great point. And it's really, I think what it's really brought into sharp focus, as you say, the funding structures which underpin all of this amazing work, and in a lot of places it's not sustainable, so we need to work out how to do it better, basically. Brilliant, thank you very much for that, Catherine. I think we're going to move on now to Eve Boyle. Are you there? So we're going to move on to the 1 minute mayhem, and this may be mayhem. We're going to see how this works. It's always mayhem in person, so
yeah. Okay, yes, 1 minute mayhem. Now, those of you who are regulars here will know that over the years, the 1 minute mayhem has become something of a ritual. For those who are new to SCHC, the idea here is that participants have 60 seconds to hold forth on, well, just about anything heritage related. And this, they're usually invited to put up one slide on which we impose a clock that counts down, and at the end of the 60 seconds somebody would squeeze a hooter thing and they're off. This year, technicalities, Zoom doesn't seem to want to let us put the clock onto the screen. So instead, I'm just going to time off stage using my phone. And we don't have the squeezy horn to blow at the end. So instead, we bring you my Nepalese singing bowl. And at that sound, your time is up, okay? Hopefully, we've only got 3 participants this afternoon, and one of them, I'm not sure he's logged in yet, so we'll see how that goes. For the next conversation, if more of you want to get up and say your 60 seconds worth, then please step forward when the invitations go out. So first off, we have Lucy Janes from the Arlington Baths Club History Group. Some of you may know the Arlington Baths, it's a swimming club in Glasgow, and it's quite a fantastic pool, if ever, as you'll know, if you've ever been lucky enough to swim there. So Lucy, do we have you? Yeah.
Hello, yes.
And the screen's up. I have to unlock my phone.
I'm poised.
Right. When I say go, then off you go. Go.
So 2020 is the 150th anniversary of the founding of the Arlington Baths in Glasgow, the oldest member-owned swimming club in the UK. So the Baths History Group had lots of events planned for the birthday year, including a special celebration around Doors Open Day. But then, of course, boom, COVID. But we were already well advanced with researching the stories of our 15 founding members and publishing those online. Then, thanks to Doors Open Day Glasgow, thank you, we spotted an opportunity to use our research for a guided walk using the Guide2Go app. So this starts from the Bass, it goes around the local area to the houses where our founders had lived. And then this is an opportunity to tell their stories, talk about the history of the club, and also show how our club is intertwined with the history of the city of Glasgow. So among the group, we recorded the stories, we loaded them onto Guide2Go, and we hosted a YouTube event to launch the app. We also recorded a video tour of the Bass with one of the usual Doors Open Day volunteers, which we published on YouTube as well. So we launched it for Doors Open Day, and so far we've had more than 400 views. It's on our website, arlingtonbass.co.uk. So it wasn't the year we planned, but happy birthday to us. Thank you.
Absolutely perfect timing. Well done. Well done. Now we should next have Alan Miller from St Andrews University. Has he joined yet? Robert, anybody seen Alan?
We're just checking that. Do you want to move on to Rosie, and then we'll just...
Well, in that case, we have Rosie Wiley. Rosie is a colleague at Historic Environment Scotland, and this year she took up a new post of Community Engagement Manager, and she now plays a central role in organising these events. So big welcome to Rosie. I just have to reset the time. Are you ready to go?
Yep, ready.
Go.
Hi everybody. So I'd like to talk about the Make Your Mark volunteer participation campaign. Make Your Mark is a new campaign currently under development, aims to increase the number and diversity of heritage volunteers in Scotland. The campaign will be a collaborative link between volunteers and organisations in Scotland's heritage sector, with a focus of supporting and increasing volunteering amongst underrepresented groups. It's a partnership project between several heritage organisations and Volunteer Scotland, and is linked to the Our Place in Time, Scotland's Historic Environment Strategy. For organisations, Make Your Mark will promote volunteering opportunities, connect heritage volunteer coordinators nationwide, and share inclusive practice. One of our proposed 2021 initiatives is a volunteer recruitment campaign delivered on behalf of the sector to support programmes impacted by COVID-19. We currently have a survey open to scope the timing, support and content, and if people want this campaign to go ahead. So if you're a volunteer involving organisation or support such organisations, we really want to hear from you. I'll share the link and also the link to the launch of the campaign in the chat. Thank you.
Thanks, Rosie. Well done. I don't think we have our third speaker, do we? Oh, we do. We welcome Alan.
Hi, Alan.
Hi, Carla. Sorry, I was masquerading under a different name, so I don't know why I thought you might be able to work out who I was, but.
Okay, right, Alan. I'll just set the timer again, and if you're ready to go, yeah, go.
Thank you very much. I'm here to talk about the Cupido project, which is a European project, but working in Scotland here, we're working with developing digital representations of heritage, focused very much upon community. And we're trying to do two things. We create a centre for excellence full of resources to help communities create and publish and get online digital heritage, and a virtual museum without walls, which helps organise that and provides galleries and virtual tour framework and the like. Next Wednesday, unashamed advert, we're having a series of workshops aimed at building up capacity, and that is focused entirely on routes to finance, with representatives from National Lottery, Heritage, Museums Gallery Scotland, and also local museums, talking about how it's possible to get heritage out there, to build engagement, but also looking at how to fund that without putting up paywalls and barriers to people engaging with the heritage.
Okay, great. Thank you, Alan. I should have said, I'm sorry, I should have introduced Alan properly. He's from the School of Computer Science at the University of St Andrews, and as regular SCHC attenders will know, he has long been a great supporter of this event. So thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Back to you, Carol.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone. And I thought that worked really well. I think it actually worked better online than it does in person. But thank you. I'm going to start drawing the event to the close now, because we're remarkably on time. So thank you so much for a great day of discussion. It has been different. It's not been the same as meeting up in person, but we've still managed to hear some incredible papers, had some really great discussions, and we hope to continue these discussions with our next series of events. As I said at the start of the event, our next event is scheduled for the 9th of December, which will look through adapting through digital. And I think some of the themes that have really come through today, we've taken a note of them, and we're going to pick those up at the next session as well. Booking is now open through our Eventbrite, so please do get booking. And we'll also be sending around our evaluation form as well. It's a digital evaluation form, of course, but we'd really love your input into what future topics should form these events. Thank you to everyone who's made this happen. In particular, our speakers, Saqib, Lauren, Kirsten and Matt. Thank you to my fellow organising committee, Ela, Eve, Rosie, Martin, Gavin, Catherine, Audrey, Neil, and our fab tech extraordinaire, Robert. Rachel and Sarah also helped from the engine shed, also helped with booking. So really, thank you so much. Eve, have you got anything else to say?
No, I think you said it all. Just
good.
Thank you all for coming. There's a nice comment from Robin Turner in the Q&A.
Oh, hello, Robin.
Organisers, great event, great speakers, lots of food for thought. That's it. So thank you all for coming.
Right, thank you so much for coming, everyone, and we'll see you again soon, very soon. Bye. Have a lovely Saturday.
Sure.